At 5:30 in the morning on December 16, 1944, thick mist blanketed the Schnee-Eifel Ridge along the Belgian-German border. American troops from the 106th Infantry Division occupied their positions, while, across the lines, German soldiers of the 18th Volksgrenadier Division made final preparations for an assault that would mark the beginning of the Battle of the Bulge. These Wehrmacht soldiers clutched their Karabiner 98K rifles, a bolt-action design inherited from their father's generation in the First World War. The weapon had proven itself dependable and accurate across battlefields, stretching from Poland to Moscow's outskirts. Before the day ended, however, these German troops would learn a harsh lesson about how their tactical methods, developed around the Mauser's 5-round magazine and bolt-action operation, had become dangerously outdated when confronted with American semi-automatic weaponry. Modern infantry warfare had undergone a mathematical transformation. German riflemen could achieve roughly 15 aimed shots each minute with their bolt-action weapons, whereas Americans firing M1 Garands delivered between 20 and 24 aimed rounds in 60 seconds. This gap would determine the outcome of engagement after engagement. German confidence in the Karabiner 98K rested on generations of battlefield success. Since 1898, the Mauser action had represented the ultimate achievement in bolt-action rifle engineering. German military thinking, enshrined in training documents like Der Dienstunterricht im Heer, valued marksmanship above volume of fire. German training manuals insisted that a marksman, not a spray-and-pray shooter, defined the German infantryman. 20 scattered shots couldn't match the value of one well-aimed round. This approach had delivered German victories throughout Europe. The identical rifle pattern had seen service in colonial campaigns, the Great War, and the stunning early triumphs of the Second World War. German infantry tactics positioned the MG-42 machine gun as the primary source of suppressive fire, with riflemen contributing carefully aimed individual shots. This system had crushed Polish resistance in weeks and defeated France in 6 weeks. When US Army researchers examined German methods after the war, they discovered that German training programs focused on engagements at 400 to 800 meters, even though combat statistics demonstrated that most firefights happened at distances under 300 meters. This disconnect between doctrine and reality would exact a terrible price when German units encountered American forces equipped with weapons designed for actual combat conditions. Kasserine Pass in February 1943 gave the Wehrmacht its first major exposure to M1 Garand-equipped American troops. Despite achieving a tactical victory, German after-action reports sent to High Command contained troubling observations that received little attention at the time. US Army historical archives show that German formations reported surprisingly intense rifle fire from American defensive positions. Reconnaissance elements from the 10th Panzer Division, engaging portions of the US Second Corps, noted that American infantry sustained continuous fire while executing fighting withdrawals, a tactical maneuver virtually impossible to perform with bolt-action weapons. Analysis of German casualty figures from Kasserine by US intelligence revealed disproportionate losses during pursuit operations, when retreating American forces maintained steady defensive fire. German success at Kasserine, though, caused these warning signs to be dismissed. American troops were inexperienced and poorly commanded. Their equipment couldn't possibly compensate for German tactical excellence. Italy's mountainous terrain from 1943 through 1944 provided extended contact with American firepower in landscape that initially appeared to favor German defensive arrangements. The Italian mountains should have advantaged defenders with bolt-action rifles engaging targets at extended ranges. At San Pietro in December 1943, the 29th Panzer Grenadier Division confronted sustained American rifle fire that contradicted German tactical assumptions. Combat interviews conducted by the US Army immediately after the battle recorded that American riflemen could maintain suppression while moving, with each soldier functioning as his own base of fire instead of depending exclusively on squad automatic weapons. German positions along the winter line, especially around Monte Cassino, struggled to counter American patrol tactics. Army reports indicate that American patrols, armed predominantly with M1 Garands, could generate enough firepower to suppress German positions during maneuvers, keeping defenders pinned down. The Gothic Line engagements of 1944 revealed the cumulative impact of this firepower disparity. German defensive doctrine expected defenders to emerge from cover between enemy shots to return fire. Against semi-automatic weapons, no such pause existed. Wehrmacht units reported to superior commands that American infantry possessed fire superiority at every engagement range below 500 meters. The Normandy invasion brought this firepower gap into stark relief. The 352nd Infantry Division defending Omaha Beach comprised experienced troops occupying prepared positions with pre-registered fire lanes. Despite these advantages, they found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer volume of aimed rifle fire from advancing American formations. U.S. Army historical documentation from D-Day shows that soldiers from the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions, despite taking heavy casualties on Omaha Beach, maintained suppressive fire while advancing up the bluffs. German strongpoints engineered to withstand artillery bombardment were gradually neutralized by the accumulated effect of thousands of 30-06 rounds fired from M1 Garands. The hedgerow combat that characterized the Normandy campaign created engagement distances of 50 meters or less. At these ranges, rate of fire mattered more than long-distance accuracy. American tactical doctrine developed at Fort Benning and refined through combat emphasized marching fire, the practice of advancing while every rifleman maintained continuous fire. Post-war U.S. Army historians found that American rifle companies in Normandy expended an average of 5,000 rounds daily during active combat, compared to 1,500 rounds for German rifle companies. This difference reflected not wasteful shooting, but fundamentally different tactical capabilities. Americans could maintain suppressive fire because every soldier carried a semi-automatic rifle. John Garand, a Canadian-American designer, created the M1 Garand, which the U.S. Army adopted in 1936, fundamentally transforming infantry tactics. Chambered for the same .30-06 cartridge as the Springfield rifle it replaced, the weapon featured an 8-round en-bloc clip and gas-operated semi-automatic action. Technical comparisons reveal telling differences. The M1 Garand delivered 16 to 24 aimed rounds per minute against the Kar-98K's 15 rounds per minute. Magazine capacity stood at 8 rounds versus 5 rounds. Both rifles showed comparable effective range at 440 yards for average soldiers. Weight differed slightly, with the M1 Garand at 9.5 pounds against the Kar-98K's 8.5 pounds. German technical intelligence conducted extensive examinations of captured M1 Garands. A 1943 report from the Kummersdorf Proving Ground acknowledged the rifle's mechanical reliability despite its complexity. German analysts, however, concentrated on the weapon's individual characteristics rather than its impact on squad-level tactics. The transformation extended beyond individual weapons. American squad tactics distributed firepower across every member. Each U.S. rifle squad could generate 160 to 200 rounds per minute of aimed fire, compared to a German squad's 40 to 70 rounds per minute from rifles alone. German squads depended on the MG-42 for suppression, while American squads achieved similar effects through combined rifle fire. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 demonstrated the complete dominance of semi-automatic rifles in modern warfare. The Wehrmacht launched its final major offensive with veteran troops and surprise on their side, yet discovered their tactical doctrine ineffective against American firepower. Kampfgruppe Piper, spearheading the 6th Panzer Army, encountered elements of the U.S. 99th Infantry Division near Lanzerath on December 16th. U.S. Army records document that despite numerical inferiority, American infantry platoons delayed the German advance through sustained rifle fire that prevented German infantry from effectively supporting their armour. Near Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division, surrounded and outnumbered, held their perimeter partly through the firepower advantage the M1 Garand provided. Combat reports indicate that German attacks following traditional doctrine of advancing under machine gun cover were repeatedly shattered by the volume of American rifle fire. Small unit actions throughout the Ardennes revealed a consistent pattern. German infantry, trained in fire and movement tactics assuming pauses between enemy shots, discovered no such pauses existed when facing semi-automatic weapons. American soldiers could fire while moving, reload quickly with the Ain block clip, and maintain continuous suppression. The industrial story behind the M1 Garand proved as decisive as its battlefield performance. Springfield Armory and Winchester. Repeating Arms Company manufactured 4,040,800 M1 Garands during World War II. Springfield Armory's peak production reached 3,936 rifles daily in January 1944. Production figures tell the story clearly. Total M1 Garand production reached 4,040,800 units. German semi-automatic rifles, the G43 and K43 combined, totaled 462,000 units. This represented a ratio of 8.7 to 1 favouring the United States. This production disparity meant that while fewer than 5% of German infantry carried semi-automatic rifles, 100% of American infantry received M1 Garands. The United States achieved mass production through innovative manufacturing techniques, specialized machinery, and standardized parts with interchangeable components. Springfield Armory transformed from a traditional government arsenal into a modern production facility. Using techniques borrowed from automotive manufacturing, workers who had never built firearms could perform single, repetitive operations that collectively produced thousands of rifles daily. The Wehrmacht attempted several adaptations to address the firepower disparity. The Gewehr 43, a German semi-automatic rifle, entered production in 1943 but never achieved sufficient numbers to equip more than specialist units. The revolutionary STG-44 assault rifle, entering service in late 1943, pointed toward future infantry weapons, but with only 425,000 produced, couldn't change the battlefield arithmetic. German tactical manuals underwent revision in 1944 to acknowledge American firepower superiority. New defensive tactics emphasized deeper entrenchments, increased reliance on mortars and artillery, and avoiding direct firefights with American infantry whenever possible. These adaptations, however, represented tactical retreats rather than solutions. U.S. Army intelligence observed that German units on the Western Front increasingly avoided offensive operations requiring infantry assault, recognizing their disadvantage in direct fire engagements. This defensive mindset, forced by material inferiority, contributed to the Wehrmacht's inability to regain initiative after the Normandy breakout. The M1 Garand's superiority affected combined arms tactics beyond simple infantry engagements. German doctrine required close infantry armour cooperation, with infantry advancing alongside tanks to protect against anti-tank teams. American rifle fire made this coordination extremely difficult. During Operation Cobra, the American breakout from Normandy in July 1944, German panzer units reported that their accompanying infantry couldn't maintain contact with advancing armour due to American small arms fire. Tanks advancing without infantry support proved vulnerable to bazooka teams and artillery observers. The M1 Garand also enhanced American defensive capabilities. During the German Mortain counter-offensive in August 1944, the U.S. 30th Infantry Division held critical positions partly through their ability to generate sustained defensive fire. Each American foxhole could produce continuous aimed fire, making German infantry assault prohibitively costly. American forces had refined semi-automatic rifle tactics in the Pacific Theater before applying them in Europe. Against Japanese forces, similarly armed with bolt-action Arisaka rifles, U.S. Marines and Army units developed techniques maximizing their firepower advantage. The concept of vertical envelopment, suppressing enemy positions with rifle fire while maneuvering to attack from unexpected angles, proved equally effective against German forces. The tactical flexibility provided by distributed firepower allowed American units to maintain offensive pressure while maneuvering, a capability German units with bolt-action rifles couldn't match. The M1 Garand's higher rate of fire demanded a revolutionary approach to ammunition supply. American divisions in Europe required approximately 10 times the small arms ammunition of equivalent German units. The US Army met this demand through an unprecedented logistics effort. Lake City Army Ammunition Plant alone produced over 3 million rounds daily. American units developed reconnaissance by fire, shooting at suspected enemy positions to provoke response. German forces trained to conserve ammunition found this wasteful but effective tactic incomprehensible and difficult to counter. The US Army developed training programs specifically designed around the M1 Garand's capabilities. At Fort Benning, the infantry school created courses emphasizing rapid target engagement over precision marksmanship. Soldiers learned instinctive shooting, quickly acquiring and engaging targets without perfect sight picture. The train fire program introduced in 1943 used pop-up targets at varying ranges to simulate combat conditions. Soldiers fired hundreds of rounds in training, building muscle memory for rapid engagement. This contrasted sharply with German training emphasizing deliberate, precise shooting with limited ammunition expenditure. American tactical doctrine evolved to maximize semi-automatic advantages. Fire teams could execute fire and movement with greater flexibility, as any soldier could provide suppressive fire while others maneuvered. The traditional distinction between fire and maneuver elements blurred when every soldier could maintain rapid fire. During the assault on the Siegfried Line in fall 1944, American forces demonstrated how semi-automatic rifles could overcome prepared defenses. German fortifications designed to channel attackers into kill zones for machine guns proved vulnerable to the cumulative effect of sustained rifle fire. The US First Army reported that M1 Garand fire could suppress German bunker apertures, allowing engineers to approach with demolition charges. The volume of fire from a single American platoon could neutralize multiple German positions simultaneously, preventing mutual support among defensive positions. The Battle for Aachen in October 1944 showcased urban combat where the M1 Garand's advantages were magnified. At close quarters, the ability to fire 8 rounds rapidly without working a bolt proved decisive. American soldiers could clear rooms and buildings more effectively than their German counterparts. The M1 Garand's gas-operated system proved more reliable in adverse conditions than initially expected. During the harsh winter of 1944–45, the rifle continued functioning in extreme cold that caused problems for other weapons systems. The design's enclosed operating rod and gas system resisted mud and debris better than the exposed bolt action of the Kar 98K. While both rifles required maintenance, the M1's semi-automatic action meant soldiers spent less time with their weapons exposed to enemy fire during reloading. The N-block clip system, initially criticized for its distinctive ping when ejecting, proved advantageous in combat. Soldiers could reload by feel in darkness or poor visibility, simply pressing the clip into the receiver. German soldiers had to individually load rounds into their rifles' internal magazines, a slower process requiring greater dexterity. The M1 Garand represented American industrial philosophy applied to warfare. Mass production of good enough quality rather than handcrafted precision. Each rifle cost approximately $85 to produce in 1944, comparable to the Kar 98K's cost. But American factories produced them 3 times faster. This efficiency extended throughout the supply chain. Standardized ammunition, interchangeable parts, and simplified maintenance procedures reduced logistics burden. A damaged M1 could often be repaired by swapping components from other rifles, while Kar 98K repairs might require skilled armorer work. The strategic impact was profound. America could equip its rapidly expanding army with modern weapons while maintaining production of tanks, aircraft, and ships. Germany, facing resource constraints and bombing of industrial facilities, couldn't match this production capacity even with simpler bolt-action rifles. After Germany's surrender in May 1945, US Army operational research teams conducted extensive studies on infantry combat effectiveness. Their analysis, based on combat records and prisoner interrogations, confirmed the M1 Garand's decisive impact. Statistical analysis revealed American rifle companies generated 340% more small arms fire than German equivalents. Average engagement duration increased from 5 to 10 minutes to 30 to 45 minutes due to sustained fire capability. American infantry could advance under their own fire support without waiting for machine guns or mortars. General George S. Patton called the M1 Garand the greatest battle implement ever devised. This assessment reflected not just the rifle's individual qualities, but its transformation of infantry combat. The weapon enabled American tactical doctrine emphasizing firepower, mobility, and aggressive action. German military professionals writing after the war acknowledged their failure to appreciate the semi-automatic rifle's importance. General Franz Halder, former chief of the German General Staff, noted in his post-war writings that the Wehrmacht had underestimated how tactical superiority in basic infantry weapons could overcome advantages in training and experience. When West Germany rearmed, the newly formed Bundeswehr immediately adopted automatic weapons. Initially the FNFAL, designated G1, and later the G3 rifle. No German military force would ever again field bolt-action rifles as primary infantry weapons. This decision reflected lessons learned from World War II. Bundeswehr planning documents emphasized that future German forces must never again face technological disadvantage in basic weapons. The trauma of facing superior American firepower shaped German military procurement for decades. The M1 Garand's success influenced military thinking worldwide. Every major military power adopted semi-automatic or automatic rifles in the immediate post-war period. The Soviet Union's SKS and later AK-47, Britain's EM-2 and France's MAS-49 all reflected lessons learned from the American demonstration of semi-automatic superiority. The Korean War proved these lessons correct. American forces armed with M1 Garands initially held advantages over North Korean and Chinese forces equipped with bolt-action rifles. Though this gap closed as Communist forces received Soviet semi-automatic weapons. The tactical innovations developed for the M1 Garand influenced modern infantry doctrine. The concept of distributed firepower, every soldier as a significant fire contributor rather than primarily ammunition carriers for machine guns, became standard in Western militaries. Modern squad tactics, emphasizing flexibility and rapid decision-making at the lowest levels, evolved from capabilities first provided by semi-automatic rifles. The ability of individual soldiers to provide effective suppressive fire while maneuvering remains fundamental to contemporary infantry operations. The M1 Garand demonstrated that industrial capacity could provide decisive tactical advantage. America's ability to mass-produce complex weapons while maintaining quality proved that 20th century warfare required industrial might as much as military skill. This lesson extended beyond small arms. The same production philosophy that created millions of M1 Garands also produced tens of thousands of tanks, aircraft, and ships. The integration of mass production techniques with military requirements revolutionized warfare logistics and planning. The M1 Garand's impact went beyond pure firepower statistics. It provided American soldiers, many of them civilian conscripts with minimal military experience, with a tangible advantage over professional German soldiers. This technological edge boosted morale and confidence, contributing to aggressive American tactical execution. Conversely, German forces experienced progressive demoralization when facing superior enemy weapons. Post-war studies indicated that knowledge of American firepower superiority affected German morale, training and combat effectiveness in the war's final years. The M1 Garand's superiority over the Karabiner 98K represented more than a simple technological advantage. It marked the definitive end of an era in infantry combat. The age of the bolt-action rifle, which had dominated battlefields since the 1890s, ended in the hedgerows of Normandy, the forests of the Ardennes, and the rubbled cities of the Reich. German forces entered World War II confident in their tactical superiority, military training, and combat experience. They discovered that American mass production and semi-automatic technology had rendered their entire approach to infantry combat obsolete. The Wehrmacht's bolt-action rifles, regardless of the skill of those who carried them, simply couldn't compete with the volume of aimed fire produced by American semi-automatic weapons. The transformation was complete and irreversible. No major military would ever again field bolt-action rifles as primary infantry weapons. The lessons learned from 1943 to 1945, that firepower, production capacity, and technological innovation could overcome traditional military virtues, shaped military thinking for the remainder of the 20th century and beyond. The M1 Garand did more than help win World War II. It revolutionized the fundamental nature of infantry combat. Every time a German soldier paused to work his rifle's bolt while American bullets cracked overhead, the future of warfare was being written. That future belonged to nations that could harness industrial might to provide their soldiers with decisive technological advantages. The Wehrmacht had expected to fight a war where training, doctrine, and experience would prove decisive. Instead, they faced an enemy whose industrial democracy had provided every soldier with a semi-automatic rifle and unlimited ammunition. In that mismatch lay not just tactical defeat, but the end of an entire conception of warfare. The M1 Garand had made the bolt-action rifle and the military doctrine built around it obsolete. The German army never expected it, never adapted to it, and ultimately never recovered from it. The 8-round N-block clip had defeated the 5-round stripper clip, and with it, an entire philosophy of war. The age of industrial warfare had definitively arrived, delivered one semi-automatic shot at a time. This historical analysis draws from documented military records, post-war studies, and technical evaluations conducted by the US Army and other military historians. While it presents interpretation of tactical impacts, all battle dates, unit designations, production figures, and technical specifications are accurate. The analysis represents historical interpretation based on available evidence rather than definitive claims about individual soldier experiences.